This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions.
This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. I'm a corporate employee with an entrepreneurial mindset. This podcast will help and support you with new ideas about business. These are my thoughts, ideas, and comments. Today I'm going to be talking about alcohol and business and how it can be used to your advantage, but equally you need to be mindful of the negatives around it. So hopefully you enjoy this and get something from my sort of ideas about how we deal with alcohol and business. Hi everyone, Mark Hayward from the Absolute Business Mindset podcast and YouTube channel. So today we're going to talk about alcohol and business. So alcohol, I think, to be fair, was probably a more of a critical component of business maybe 15, maybe 20 years ago. So just before I go into my thoughts on this, I did a role where I did, before I went to university, worked in a small business, and that was 20 years ago, and alcohol was critical for business to occur. It was where deals were done, it was where relationships were built, it was where good people were working with other people, and a lot of about things were brought up in the pub that isn't done so much nowadays. So I just wanted to sort of touch on alcohol and how it's used, and then sort of some of the sort of negative around it, and then you're going to get my personal view as well. So as we are approaching Christmas, alcohol is a topical subject, I think, to talk about. So like disclaimer at the start, I'm not against alcohol. What I'm against is getting drunk, and sort of the consequences that come from actually getting drunk. So I do have alcohol at home. I'm not completely abstaining or anything like that, but I do think we need to be mindful of how it's used as a tool, whether you're dealing with home life or whether you're dealing with business. So around Christmas time, there's lots of boozy nights, whether it's the Christmas party, which we've just had recently, or there could be Christmas meals, there's Christmas get-together lunches and get-togethers. So it's happening a lot at the moment around the Christmas period, but equally it does happen all through the year on different occasions, whether it is as simple as going for a beer with a group of people, colleagues at work, and how you deal with that. So yeah, I think, well, I'll let you know my personal view a little bit later on. So most people thrive on being in a party. I've experienced that in a couple of different companies that I've worked for. They love the idea of being able to let their hair down and go a little bit crazy. And equally, when you're going to these sorts of parties, there's invariably, for a period of the time, maybe not all the time, there's free booze, which a lot of people get on and sort of want to maximise their intake while there's free booze. Equally, on these sorts of parties, you have a party atmosphere, which is predominantly loud music, dancing, and so yeah, don't think I'm a Scrooge or a party pooper. I enjoy people having a good time and having a dance and getting in the party atmosphere. They're with their friends and their colleagues. That is something people do create a bond with, whether people can actually call themselves friends at work or whether they are just good colleagues. One of the things that I sort of dislike about it, I suppose, is the disregard for tomorrow. So people stay out till very early in the morning, and they have no regard for what's actually happening on the next day, which I think is a bad thing. Late nights equal late mornings, so it could be early mornings. Never start with early mornings. And I think it's something that happens a lot in sort of a company. People feel there's a free party and they should be out and enjoying themselves, which is absolutely fine. Like, really, I don't have a problem with people having fun and having a laugh. It's just really, for me, one of the big things, which I talk about in my personal view, is hangovers. Just can't stand them, just can't abide them. So for me, that's a massive problem, but more of that a bit later. So what we've found, so I listen to quite a few podcasts, and most of them are US. They're not all US, but a lot of them are entrepreneurial, and typically they are quite anti-alcohol. Influencers have often come out with rejecting alcohol because of they've still got to go to work the next day and it gives them a hangover, or they don't want to get up early. A lot of these influencers get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. If you're boozing to 11 o'clock or later, there's no chance you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I think the US entrepreneurs the US has a bit more of an anti-alcohol culture, which in the UK is very, very important to us. The pub, the party, the club is all something that is very UK centric, in the sense that they do have a big impact, the sort of drinking culture, which maybe isn't so prominent in the US. And also they reject hangovers. They hate the idea of having a hangover and making themselves less productive on the next day. And some of these entrepreneurs, they can't have quiet days. They can't have days where they're not doing very much, because they have to do deals, and those deals don't stop just because you've got a hangover. So I've kind of talked about the UK atmosphere. I've kind of just talked about the US atmosphere. I'm going to talk about my personal view now. So the big thing for me, why I am not, it's not that I'm anti-alcohol, because I have a drink, I enjoy having a drink, but hangovers for me are awful. I do not enjoy them. I do not like fighting through them. I do not enjoy that feeling anymore. In my 20s, I just got up, and when you get a little bit older, you don't have that kickstart that you used to have when you're in your 20s. One of the big things for me is getting enough sleep. I function really badly if I don't have enough sleep, so it's a big thing for me to be able to get 7 hours, 6, 7, 8 hours is good for me. Anything less than that, I really struggle. So I think it's a big thing for me to get enough sleep. So if I'm out till 4, what's that, 12? I won't be getting up till 12. That doesn't really work very well in the corporate environment. So I don't do that, essentially. I do drink. I would say I drink regularly. I have some wine or a beer or a gin and tonic or something with my wife, and we have a chat, and it's nice and relaxing, and it relaxes me. But I don't get drunk very often these days. So in my 20s, I used to party, used to have fun. Not anymore. When you have kids and a family, you end up not drinking as much, not going out as much, because you have different priorities. I think it's important to keep a good view of you in the office, to maybe leave a little bit early. I know some people just abstain or leave exceptionally early. I'm not saying that it starts at 6 and I leave at 7. But I'll leave about 9:30, and I won't feel guilty about it at all, because I've still got to get home and then get my sleep as well. So I've got no problem about leaving, but I know some people feel peer pressure. I used to feel peer pressure, less so now than ever before. I just don't care. If the worst thing that people say about me is that I don't go boozing with them, I'm happy with that. I can live with that, and you should be able to as well. You should be strong enough and not feel peer pressure. You're not, or you may be, but if you're older than school age, you should be strong enough to be able to leave a few drinks. I'm sorry, I've got no excuse for people that just, but I want to stay because all my mates are there. Okay, but you'll suffer the next day, and I would advise, my advice is not to be the last one leaving. There are times to have good conversations, so you can catch up with people, you can network with people, you can link in with people that you don't often see, which is great, but you do kind of know when people start tipping over into that sort of piss state, and that's when I leave. If even if I'm having a really good time, if that starts happening, then I tend to leave. And so, so I think you need to listen to yourself. You need to listen to what works for you and what's important to you, and live with people that, like, I always think that when that's tipping over stage, when people start slurring their words or not really controlling conversations, or sometimes dancing is, I don't mind having a dance, but sometimes dancing is a critical sign where you kind of see, actually, people have topped over here and are going into that sort of realm of getting hammered. So I back out whenever that happens. So that's my sort of thoughts on alcohol and business. Can be useful, can be good to speak to people, can be useful to hear things that you wouldn't normally hear. Totally warranted, totally good. Actually, it was more than totally, it's good to do that. But equally, I think it's advisable to be able to be leaving and not be one of the last people in the party. So hopefully you don't think I'm too much of a Scrooge or a sourpuss as I'm saying this, but I just don't get drunk these days, and so or rarely I get drunk. I never say never, rarely I get drunk. So I think it's important that everyone sort of has that in their mindset, and equally, if you're a 20-year-old who can get drunk and get up and function the next morning, I kind of think you're lying to yourself a little bit, but you probably do it better than I would do. So it's excuse me. So it's totally up to you on how you feel about alcohol, but I think it's useful, but not critical for business these days. Right? Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm on all of those platforms. Please check it out. There is posts there. Equally. Leave me some feedback on absolutebusinessmindset@gmail.com. Would love to hear your thoughts, ideas, maybe people to interview. I'm going to kick off the interviews again pretty soon. So please do check out them, and I hope that you've enjoyed today's session. Thank you.